Somewhere inside you, there's a version of yourself you've never met. A version that speaks without rehearsing every word. That walks into rooms and owns them. That says no without guilt, asks for more without apologizing, and wakes up every morning without that quiet voice whispering, "You're not enough." That version isn't a fantasy. It's not wishful thinking. It's who you were supposed to become before the lie took hold. The lie sounds innocent. Just 5 words. But those 5 words have destroyed more human potential than any failure ever could. This is just who I am. You've said it. You've believed it. You've used it to explain why you didn't take the risk, have the conversation, chase the dream. And every single time you said it, you locked yourself deeper inside a prison you didn't even know existed. 97% of people will repeat that lie until the day they die. They'll spend their entire lives defending a personality that was never theirs to begin with, installed by parents, programmed by failures, reinforced by fears that had no right to define them. Here's what they'll never discover. The prison has no locks. The walls are made of belief. And the version of you that's been waiting on the other side, it's closer than you think. I know that sounds like a promise. So let me give you proof. For 80 years, Harvard University followed 724 people, from youth to old age, through marriages, careers, failures, and triumphs. The longest study on human development ever conducted. And after 8 decades of data, they discovered something that should change how you see yourself forever. Your personality at 25 does not predict your personality at 45. People change. Dramatically. Fundamentally. The science is undeniable. The only question is whether you'll be one of the rare few who does it on purpose, or one of the 97% who stays stuck by accident. Welcome to the personality upgrade. My name doesn't matter. What matters is this. In the next several hours, you're going to learn exactly how successful people rewire themselves daily. Not through motivation, not through willpower, through a system, a science-backed, psychologically proven system that transforms your identity from the inside out. And by the end, you won't just feel different. You will be different. Let me tell you about 2 people whose lives were about to change forever. Jordan Hale was 33 years old when he realized he'd been running on a broken operating system. From the outside, his life looked fine. Stable job, good apartment, friends who texted back. But inside, Jordan felt like he was watching his own life through a foggy window. He'd wake up each morning with a vague sense of dread. Not about anything specific, just a feeling that he was falling behind. That everyone else had figured something out that he hadn't. At work, Jordan was the guy who said yes to everything. Not because he wanted to, but because he didn't know how to say no without feeling guilty. His colleagues liked him. At least, he thought they did, but no one really saw him. He was the nice guy, the reliable one, the one who'd never make waves. The problem was, Jordan wanted more. He wanted to speak up in meetings without his heart racing. He wanted to ask for the promotion he deserved instead of waiting to be noticed. He wanted to stop rehearsing conversations in his head for hours before having them. But every time he tried to change, he'd last a few days, maybe a week, and then slip back into the same patterns. The same overthinking, the same people-pleasing, the same quiet frustration. Maybe this is just my personality, he told himself one night, staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. Maybe I'm not built for confidence. He was wrong, but he didn't know it yet. 300 miles away, Riley Morgan was having a very different kind of crisis. On paper, Riley was crushing it. 29 years old, senior marketing director at a Fortune 500 company. The kind of person whose LinkedIn profile made other people feel inadequate. But here's what the LinkedIn profile didn't show. Riley hadn't slept more than 5 hours a night in 3 years. She measured her worth in deliverables. Every Sunday evening, a familiar tightness would grip her chest, the anxiety of another week where she had to prove herself all over again. Riley had built her entire identity around achievement. Straight A's in school, captain of the debate team, youngest person ever promoted to director at her company. Success wasn't just something she did. It was who she was. And that was exactly the problem. Because when your identity is fused with achievement, rest feels like failure. Saying no feels like weakness. And the moment you stop performing, you stop existing. Riley didn't know it yet, but she was one panic attack away from everything falling apart. Jordan and Riley had never met. They lived in different cities, worked in different industries, struggled with opposite problems. Jordan was stuck because he didn't believe in himself enough. Riley was stuck because she believed in a version of herself that was slowly destroying her. But they had one thing in common. They both thought their personalities were fixed, and they were both about to learn the most important truth in psychology. Personality is not a prison. It's a program, and programs can be upgraded. Let's pause here, because this is where most self-help fails you. Most books tell you to believe in yourself, or think positive, or visualize success. And look, those things aren't wrong, but they're incomplete. They're like telling someone who wants to run a marathon to just run faster. What they don't tell you is this: belief follows action, not the other way around. You don't become confident and then take confident action. You take confident action, small, daily, intentional action, and confidence follows. You don't develop discipline through motivation. You develop discipline through systems. You don't build a new identity by thinking about it. You build a new identity by doing things that a person with that identity would do. This is what Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck calls the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. People with a fixed mindset believe their traits are carved in stone. They avoid challenges because failure would prove they're not good enough. People with a growth mindset believe their abilities can be developed. They seek challenges because struggle means growth. But here's what most people miss about Dweck's research. Mindset isn't just about intelligence or talent. It applies to your entire personality. Think about that for a moment. If you believe you're just not a confident person, you'll avoid situations that require confidence, which means you'll never build confidence, which means you'll keep believing you're not confident. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you believe confidence is a skill, like playing piano or speaking Spanish, then everything changes. You start seeing every uncomfortable situation as practice. Every failure becomes data. Every small win becomes proof. This is the foundation of what I call the personality upgrade. The understanding that your personality is not fixed. It's a collection of habits, beliefs, and patterns that can be consciously redesigned. And successful people know this. They've known it all along. Let me share something that might surprise you. When researchers at the University of Illinois analyzed over 200 studies involving more than 50,000 participants, they found something remarkable. Personality continues to change throughout the entire lifespan. In fact, people in their 60s and 70s showed as much capacity for change as people in their 20s. But here's the key finding. The people who changed the most were the ones who actively worked on it. It wasn't random. It wasn't luck. It wasn't just growing older. It was intentional effort. The average person changes by accident. They're shaped by their environment, their relationships, their circumstances. Life happens to them, and their personality shifts in response, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But successful people don't leave their identity to chance. They treat personality development like any other skill. They set specific goals. They practice deliberately. They track their progress. They upgrade themselves daily. This is the difference between the 97% and the 3%. The 97% say, "This is just who I am." The 3% say, "This is who I'm becoming." Now, I need to be honest with you about something. This audiobook isn't going to make you feel good. At least, not in the shallow, temporary way that most self-help does. There will be moments in the coming chapters where you recognize yourself in Jordan's people-pleasing or Riley's burnout, where you realize that some of your most cherished beliefs about yourself are actually limiting stories you've been telling for decades. That's uncomfortable, but discomfort is the price of transformation. Here's what I can promise you. If you apply what you learn, not just listen to it, but actually apply it, your life will be different in 90 days. Your confidence will be different. Your discipline will be different. The way people respond to you will be different. Not because you'll become someone you're not, but because you'll finally become who you were meant to be. Because here's the truth about personality upgrades. You're not adding something foreign. You're removing what's blocking your potential. The confident, disciplined, emotionally intelligent version of you already exists. It's buried under years of bad habits, limiting beliefs, and identity stories that no longer serve you. This audiobook is the excavation. Before we move forward, I want to introduce you to someone who changed everything for Jordan and Riley. Someone who gave them the framework that allowed them to transform their lives. His name is Dr. Elias Navarro, and he's a cognitive neuroscientist who spent 20 years studying one question. Why do some people achieve lasting personal growth while others stay stuck despite trying everything? Dr. Navarro's research led him to a conclusion that flies in the face of conventional self-help. The problem isn't lack of motivation. The problem is misaligned identity. Most people try to change their behavior while keeping the same identity, Dr. Navarro explains. But behavior always bends back to match identity. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. You can do it for a while, but eventually, it's going to pop back up. Think about that. If your identity is, "I'm not a morning person," you can set 1,000 alarms. You can read every productivity book ever written. But as long as that identity stays intact, you'll keep hitting snooze. But if you upgrade your identity, if you begin to see yourself as someone who honors their commitments, someone who does hard things, waking up early stops being a battle. It becomes an expression of who you are. This is why New Year's resolutions fail. People try to change what they do without changing who they are. And identity always wins. The personality upgrade system that Dr. Navarro developed, and that Jordan, Riley, and thousands of others have used to transform their lives, works differently. Instead of starting with behavior, it starts with identity. Instead of relying on motivation, it builds systems. Instead of aiming for massive overnight change, it focuses on small daily upgrades that compound over time. In the chapters ahead, you'll learn this system in detail. You'll discover how to identify the specific identity scripts that are running your life and how to rewrite them. The habit architecture that makes discipline feel automatic instead of exhausting. The emotional regulation tools that give you calm, clarity, and confidence in any situation. The communication strategies that build trust, influence, and presence without manipulation. And the daily protocols that successful people use to upgrade themselves every single day. But first, we need to go deeper into the science of identity. Because once you understand how your current personality was programmed, you'll understand exactly how to reprogram it. Here's what's coming in Chapter 2. We're going to deconstruct identity itself. You'll learn about the hidden identity scripts that control 95% of your daily behavior, scripts you didn't even know existed. You'll discover the 3 layers of change and why most people are working on the wrong layer. And you'll meet Jordan and Riley again at the exact moment when their old identities began to crack. The journey of transformation has begun. But remember, information without application is just entertainment. So here's your first micro-challenge. Before the next chapter, I want you to complete one sentence. Just one. Write it down or say it out loud. The personality trait I most want to upgrade is, and the identity story that's been holding me back is. Don't overthink it. Don't try to be profound. Just notice what comes up. Because awareness is the first step, and you've already taken it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 2. The Identity Blueprint. Every single day, you make approximately 35,000 decisions. What to wear, what to eat, what to say, whether to speak up or stay silent, whether to push through or give up. But here's what neuroscientists at Cornell University discovered. 95% of those decisions aren't really decisions at all. They're automatic responses running on autopilot, controlled by something you've never consciously examined. Your identity. And if you don't understand how identity works, how it was built, how it operates, and how it can be changed, you will spend the rest of your life trying to change behaviors while the invisible force underneath keeps pulling you back. This chapter is going to change that. Because once you see the identity blueprint, you can never unsee it. Let's go back to Jordan. It was a Tuesday morning, and Jordan was sitting in a conference room with 7 other people. His manager had just asked a simple question about the project timeline, and Jordan knew the answer. He'd been working on this project for 3 months. He knew it better than anyone in the room. But instead of speaking, Jordan felt his throat tighten. His heart started beating faster. A familiar voice whispered in his head, "What if you're wrong? What if you sound stupid? Just let someone else answer." So he stayed quiet. And 30 seconds later, a colleague named Marcus, who barely understood the project, gave a half-correct answer that the manager accepted. Jordan spent the rest of the meeting angry at himself. Why couldn't he just speak up? Why did this keep happening? That night, Jordan did what he always did after moments like this. He Googled how to be more confident. He read 3 articles. He watched 2 YouTube videos. He even ordered a book called Speak Up: Finding Your Voice in Any Situation. But here's what Jordan didn't understand. His problem wasn't a lack of information. His problem was his identity. Somewhere deep in Jordan's operating system, there was a belief running on repeat. I am not the kind of person who speaks up. I am the kind of person who plays it safe. That belief wasn't random. It was programmed by years of experiences, interactions, and small moments that Jordan had long forgotten. But the program was still running, and no amount of tips, tricks, or techniques would override it. Not until he changed the program itself. Meanwhile, Riley was discovering her own identity crisis, though it looked completely different. It happened at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. Riley was still at her desk, eyes burning, finishing a presentation that wasn't due for another week. She'd already worked 14 hours that day. Her body was screaming for rest. But she couldn't stop, because stopping felt like dying. That thought startled her. She actually paused and said it out loud. Why does stopping feel like dying? And in that moment of exhaustion-induced clarity, Riley saw something she'd never seen before. She saw the identity script that had been running her life since childhood. I am valuable because I produce. I am worthy because I achieve. If I stop achieving, I stop mattering. Riley's parents had never said those words directly, but they'd communicated them in 1,000 small ways. The extra praise when she got straight A's. The subtle disappointment when she came in second. The way "What did you accomplish today?" replaced "How are you feeling?" as the standard dinner table question. By the time Riley was 12, the script was fully installed, and she'd been running it ever since. Through high school, through college, through her meteoric career rise. The script had made her successful, but it was also destroying her. Because identity scripts don't care about your well-being. They only care about consistency. This is the first thing you need to understand about identity. It's not who you really are. It's who you've been programmed to believe you are. Dr. Elias Navarro calls this the identity blueprint, the collection of beliefs, stories, and self-definitions that operate beneath your conscious awareness, shaping every decision you make. Think of your identity like software, Dr. Navarro explains. You didn't write most of it. It was installed by your parents, your teachers, your culture, your early experiences. And most of it was installed before you were 7 years old, before you had the critical thinking skills to question it. This is why personal development is so frustrating for most people. They're trying to install new apps on a corrupted operating system. They read books about confidence while their identity blueprint says, "I'm not confident." They set goals for discipline while their identity blueprint says, "I'm the kind of person who gives up." The apps crash. Every time. But when you upgrade the operating system itself, when you rewrite the identity blueprint, everything changes. New behaviors stop feeling forced. They start feeling natural, because they're aligned with who you believe you are. This is the secret that successful people understand intuitively. Identity is the leverage point. Change your identity, and behavior follows automatically. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits and one of the world's leading experts on behavior change, makes a crucial distinction between outcome-based habits and identity-based habits. An outcome-based approach says, "I want to lose 20 pounds." An identity-based approach says, "I am becoming a healthy person." An outcome-based approach says, "I want to write a book." An identity-based approach says, "I am a writer." An outcome-based approach says, "I want to be less anxious." An identity-based approach says, "I am someone who stays calm under pressure." The difference seems subtle, but it's everything. When you focus on outcomes, motivation is your only fuel. And motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes based on your mood, your energy, your circumstances. The moment motivation fades, the behavior stops. But when you focus on identity, something different happens. Every action becomes a vote for the person you're becoming. You don't need motivation to brush your teeth, because I am someone who brushes their teeth is part of your identity. It's just what you do. The goal of the personality upgrade isn't to add more willpower. It's to make the right behaviors feel as automatic as brushing your teeth. And that starts with understanding the 3 layers of change. Picture a target with 3 concentric circles. The outer circle is outcomes, what you get, the results, the achievements, the visible changes. The middle circle is processes, what you do, the habits, the systems, the daily routines. The inner circle is identity, who you believe you are, the self-image, the core beliefs, the identity blueprint. Most people try to change from the outside in. They focus on outcomes first. I want to make more money. I want to lose weight. I want to be respected. Then they try to adopt processes that might produce those outcomes. I'll work harder. I'll go to the gym. I'll speak more assertively. But they never touch the inner circle. They never examine whether their identity actually supports those processes and outcomes. This is why they fail. The 3%, the successful people who achieve lasting transformation, work from the inside out. They start with identity. They ask, who is the kind of person who achieves this outcome? What do they believe? How do they see themselves? Then they align their processes with that identity. And the outcomes follow naturally. Jordan's problem wasn't that he didn't know how to speak up. His problem was that his identity said, I'm not a speaker-upper. Until that changed, no technique would stick. Riley's problem wasn't that she didn't know how to rest. Her problem was that her identity said, my worth equals my output. Until that changed, rest would always feel like failure. So how do you actually change your identity? This is where most self-help gets vague. They tell you to believe in yourself or change your story without explaining the mechanics. Dr. Navarro's research revealed a precise formula. Identity equals repeated behaviors plus emotional significance plus time. Let's break that down. First, repeated behaviors. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe you are. Skip the gym once, and it's no big deal. Skip it 100 times, and you've cast 100 votes for, I'm not someone who exercises. The votes accumulate. They become your identity. This works in reverse too. Go to the gym once, and nothing changes. Go 100 times, and something shifts. Not just physically, but mentally. You start to see yourself differently. I guess I am someone who works out. Second, emotional significance. Not all experiences carry equal weight. A single moment of public humiliation can install an identity script that lasts decades. A single experience of success, deeply felt, can rewrite years of self-doubt. This is why transformation often happens in intense experiences, therapy breakthroughs, near-death experiences, major life transitions. The emotional intensity burns the new identity into your psyche. Third, time. Identity change isn't instant. It's a gradual process of accumulating evidence. Each small action provides a tiny piece of proof. Over weeks and months, those pieces assemble into a new self-image. The formula gives us a roadmap. To change your identity, you need to repeatedly take actions that a person with your desired identity would take, ideally with emotional engagement, sustained over time. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Now let's talk about identity scripts specifically, because these are the invisible programs running your life. An identity script is a belief about yourself that feels like fact. It usually takes the form, I am the kind of person who, or I'm just not someone who. Here are some common ones. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad at math. I'm too sensitive. I'm an introvert, so I can't do networking. I'm not creative. I'm the responsible one. I'm not good with money. Notice how absolute these statements feel. They don't say, I haven't developed this skill yet. They say this is who I am. Fixed, permanent, unchangeable. But here's what decades of research in neuroplasticity has proven. The brain is not fixed. It's constantly rewiring itself based on your experiences and behaviors. The neurons that fire together wire together. And that means every single identity script can be rewritten. The identity scripts that feel most permanent are simply the ones with the deepest neural grooves, the ones that have been reinforced the most times. But grooves can be filled in. New pathways can be carved. This is the science of the personality upgrade. It's not mystical. It's not about positive thinking. It's about systematically creating new neural pathways through deliberate action. Let me show you how Jordan and Riley began their transformation. Jordan's breakthrough came unexpectedly. He was at a coffee shop, and the barista got his order wrong. Old Jordan would have said nothing. He would have accepted the wrong drink, silently resented it, and spent the next hour feeling frustrated with himself. But something was different that day. Maybe it was the book he'd been reading. Maybe it was exhaustion with his own patterns. Whatever it was, Jordan heard himself say, "Actually, I ordered an oat milk latte. This has regular milk." That's it. 7 words. Nothing dramatic. But as Jordan walked out with the correct drink, something shifted inside him. A tiny thought emerged. I guess I can speak up. One vote. One tiny piece of evidence. One microscopic crack in the old identity blueprint. Over the next few weeks, Jordan started collecting more votes. He disagreed with a friend's restaurant choice, politely but clearly. He asked his manager a clarifying question in a meeting. He sent back a meal at a restaurant that wasn't cooked properly. None of these actions were heroic, but each one was a vote, and the votes were accumulating. After 2 months, Jordan noticed something strange. Speaking up didn't feel hard anymore. It wasn't that he'd conquered his fear. It was that his identity had shifted. He was becoming someone who expressed his opinions. And expressing opinions is just what that kind of person does. Riley's journey was different, but the mechanics were the same. Her breakthrough came during a mandatory vacation. Mandatory because her company had started enforcing time off after 2 employees burned out completely. For the first 3 days, Riley was miserable. She checked her email constantly. She made lists of things she'd do when she got back. She felt physically anxious doing nothing. But on day 4, something cracked. She was sitting on a beach, watching the waves, and she realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd just been. Not achieved, not produced, not performed, just existed. And in that moment, a new thought entered her mind. What if I'm valuable even when I'm not producing? It felt foreign, almost dangerous, but also possible. Riley started small. She let herself sleep in one morning without setting an alarm. She took a walk without listening to a productivity podcast. She had a conversation with a stranger without trying to network. Each action felt uncomfortable. Each action was a vote against her old identity of I and my achievements. And each action was a vote for a new identity. I am inherently worthy. It would take months for this new identity to stabilize. But the process had begun. Here's what I want you to understand. You don't have to make massive changes to upgrade your identity. In fact, massive changes usually backfire because they're too far from your current identity blueprint. The key is what Dr. Navarro calls the identity gap principle. Each upgrade should be small enough that your current identity can accept it, but significant enough that it creates new evidence. If Jordan had tried to give a keynote speech on day 1, he would have failed. The gap between I don't speak up and I give keynote speeches was too large. His identity would have rejected it. But correcting a coffee order? That was small enough to slip past his identity's defenses. It was close enough to who he already was that it felt achievable. Yet it was different enough to create new evidence. This is the art of the personality upgrade, finding the smallest viable action that creates identity-shifting evidence. Now, here's your second micro-challenge, and this one is crucial. I want you to identify your 3 most limiting identity scripts. The beliefs about yourself that feel like facts, but might actually be outdated programs. Complete these sentences. I'm not the kind of person who. I've always been bad at. I could never. Write them down. Say them out loud. Look at them. Then ask yourself, when was this script installed? What experiences created it? And is it actually true, or is it just familiar? Because here's the thing. Familiar and true are not the same thing. You've been running these scripts for so long that they feel like reality. But they're not reality. They're just code. And code can be rewritten. In Chapter 3, we're going to get practical. You'll learn the exact architecture for building new habits that stick, not through willpower, but through strategic design. You'll discover why most habit advice fails and what actually works according to the latest research in behavioral psychology. And you'll watch Jordan and Riley take their first steps into the habit engineering process that would change everything. The identity shift has begun. Now it's time to build the structure that supports it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 3. The Habit Architecture. Here's a number that will change how you think about success. 43%. That's the percentage of your daily actions that are habitual, according to research from Duke University. Not decisions, not conscious choices. Automatic behaviors running on autopilot while your mind is somewhere else entirely. 43% of your life is on cruise control. Now think about what that means. If you sleep 8 hours a night, you have roughly 16 waking hours. 43% of that is nearly 7 hours, every single day, operating on habits you may have never consciously designed. 7 hours of automatic behavior. 7 hours where your future is being shaped without your input. 7 hours where the architecture of your life is either building you up or tearing you down. The question isn't whether you have habits. The question is whether your habits have you. Jordan learned this the hard way. After his breakthrough at the coffee shop, after he started accumulating small wins and shifting his identity, Jordan felt unstoppable for about 2 weeks. Then life happened. A stressful project at work, a fight with his roommate, a string of bad sleep. And slowly, invisibly, Jordan slipped back into his old patterns. He stopped speaking up in meetings. He started saying yes to things he wanted to refuse. The confident version of himself that had briefly emerged retreated back into hiding. What happened? Jordan asked himself one night, frustrated. I was doing so well. Here's what happened. Jordan had started building a new identity, but he hadn't built the architecture to support it. Identity without habits is like a house without a foundation. It looks impressive for a while, but the first storm knocks it down. This is where most personal development fails. People have breakthrough moments, a powerful book, an inspiring seminar, a moment of clarity, and they feel transformed. But they don't build the daily systems to lock in the transformation. So they drift back to baseline. The personality upgrade isn't just about who you believe you are. It's about building the daily habits that make that belief automatic and self-reinforcing. Dr. Navarro has a phrase for this. Habits are identity made visible. Think about that. Every habit you have is a statement about who you are. The person who exercises every morning is making a statement. I am someone who prioritizes my health. The person who reads before bed is making a statement. I am someone who values learning. The person who checks social media first thing upon waking is making a statement too, whether they realize it or not. Your habits are casting votes for your identity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The question is, what are they voting for? This is why habit architecture is so crucial to the personality upgrade. When you design your habits intentionally, you're not just changing what you do. You're engineering a constant stream of identity reinforcement. Every time you complete a habit aligned with your new identity, you're casting a vote. Every vote makes the identity stronger. Every day the identity grows stronger, the habits become easier. It's a virtuous cycle, but only if you build it deliberately. Let me introduce you to the science of habit formation, because most of what people believe about habits is wrong. The old model said habits take 21 days to form. This myth came from a 1960s plastic surgeon who noticed patients took about 3 weeks to adjust to their new appearance. It had nothing to do with behavioral habits. The real research, conducted by Philippa Lally and her team at University College London, found something very different. They tracked 96 people trying to form new habits and discovered that the average time to automaticity was 66 days, not 21. And the range was enormous, from 18 days for simple habits to 254 days for complex ones. But here's the crucial finding. Missing a single day had no measurable impact on the habit formation process. The people who missed occasional days formed habits just as effectively as those who were perfectly consistent. This changes everything, because most people quit when they miss a day. They think they've broken the streak and have to start over. But the research shows that's not how habits work at all. Habits aren't about perfect streaks. They're about overall repetition. The goal isn't to never miss. The goal is to never miss twice. Now let's talk about how habits actually form in the brain. MIT researchers discovered that every habit follows a three-part loop: cue, routine, reward. The cue is the trigger, something that tells your brain to initiate the automatic behavior. It could be a time of day, a location, an emotional state, or an action you just completed. The routine is the behavior itself, the action you take in response to the cue. The reward is the benefit you get from the behavior. The reason your brain decides this loop is worth remembering. Here's an example. You feel stressed, cue. You reach for your phone and scroll social media, routine. You get a temporary dopamine hit and distraction from stress, reward. That loop gets repeated hundreds of times until it becomes automatic. Now, whenever stress appears, your hand reaches for your phone before you've consciously decided anything. This is the habit loop, and understanding it gives you tremendous power because you can reverse engineer it. Want to build a new habit? Design a clear cue. Make the routine as easy as possible. Ensure the reward is immediate and satisfying. Want to break a bad habit? Identify the cue and either eliminate it or change your response. Understand the reward you're really seeking and find a healthier way to get it. The habit loop is the operating system of behavior change. Master it, and you master the architecture of your daily life. Let me show you how this worked for Jordan. After his setback, after realizing that identity alone wasn't enough, Jordan discovered the concept of habit stacking, and it transformed his approach. Habit stacking is a technique developed by B.J. Fogg at Stanford's Behavior Design Lab. The idea is simple. You attach a new habit to an existing habit, using the old habit as the cue for the new one. The formula is, after I current habit, I will new habit. Jordan realized his morning routine was on autopilot. He woke up, checked his phone, showered, made coffee, and left for work, all without thinking. These existing habits were stable. They happened every day without effort. So Jordan started stacking new habits onto them. After I pour my coffee, I will write down one thing I want to speak up about today. That was it. One sentence, 5 seconds, but it changed everything. The coffee became the cue. The writing became the routine. And the reward? Jordan started to feel prepared. He walked into work with a specific intention instead of vague anxiety. Within 2 weeks, Jordan added another stack. After I write my intention, I will visualize myself speaking up clearly and calmly. 15 more seconds. But now he wasn't just prepared. He had mentally rehearsed success. Habit stacking works because it removes the hardest part of habit formation, remembering to do it. When you attach a new behavior to an existing automatic behavior, the existing behavior becomes a trigger. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. Riley's approach was different because her problem was different. Riley didn't need to add more habits. She needed to subtract. Her life was overflowing with habits that reinforced her achievement equals worth identity. Checking email before getting out of bed, listening to productivity podcasts during every spare moment, working through lunch, answering messages within minutes regardless of the hour. For Riley, the personality upgrade required habit elimination, or more precisely, habit substitution. Here's what Dr. Navarro taught her. You can rarely eliminate a habit entirely. The neural pathway exists. The loop will keep trying to run, but you can redirect it. Riley identified her most destructive habit loop. Cue, feeling anxious or uncertain routine. Check email or work on something reward. Temporary feeling of control and productivity. The cue wasn't going away. Anxiety is part of life. And the reward need was legitimate. She genuinely needed to feel some sense of control. So the intervention point was the routine. Riley created a substitution. When I feel anxious and reach for work, I will instead take 3 deep breaths and ask myself what I actually need right now. It wasn't easy. The first dozen times, she felt the pull toward email so strongly it was almost physical. But each time she chose the new routine, she was carving a new neural pathway. Each successful substitution was a vote for her new identity. I am someone who responds to emotions with awareness, not avoidance. After 6 weeks, something remarkable happened. Riley noticed the old urge was weaker. Not gone, but weaker. The new pathway was becoming the default. This brings us to a crucial concept: routine design. Most people's daily routines are accidental. They developed over years through random circumstances, copied behaviors, and unconscious reactions. There's no architecture, no intention, no alignment with who they want to become. Successful people approach their routines differently. They treat their day like an engineer treats a system. What inputs create which outputs? Where are the failure points? How can the design be optimized? Research from the American Psychological Association shows that decision fatigue is real. Every decision you make depletes a limited mental resource. By the end of the day, your ability to make good choices is significantly diminished. This is why routine design matters so much. Every routine you establish is a decision you no longer have to make. You're not deciding whether to exercise. You just exercise at 7 a.m. because that's what happens at 7 a.m. You're not deciding whether to eat healthy. You just eat the meal you prepped on Sunday because that's the system. Elite performers understand this intuitively. When researchers studied Olympic athletes, Fortune 500 CEOs, and world-class musicians, they found a striking commonality: highly structured daily routines. Not because these people lack creativity or spontaneity, but because they know that structure creates freedom. When the essential behaviors are automated, mental energy is freed for what matters most. Average performers wake up and ask, "What should I do today?" Elite performers wake up and execute. "Here's what I do today." The difference seems small, but compounded over years, it's the difference between drifting and designing your life. Let me give you the framework for building your own habit architecture. Dr. Navarro calls it the 4 pillars of daily habits. Pillar 1, the morning ignition. The first hour of your day sets the trajectory for everything that follows. Small daily actions in the morning have disproportionate impact because they create momentum. Your morning routine should include at least one habit that reinforces your desired identity. For Jordan, it was his coffee stack intention setting. For Riley, it was 10 minutes of journaling without any screens. What you do first, you do with your full willpower reserve. Use it wisely. Pillar 2, the work anchors. These are habits embedded in your workday that keep you aligned with your values. They prevent the drift that happens when you're reactive instead of intentional. Examples: a 2-minute breathing exercise before important meetings. A midday check-in asking, "Am I working on what matters?" A transition ritual between tasks that clears mental residue. Pillar 3, the evening download. How you end your day determines how you start the next one. The evening is for processing, not producing. A brief review of the day, what went well, what you learned, what you'll do differently, creates closure. It prevents rumination and primes your subconscious for problem solving while you sleep. Pillar 4, the weekly reset. Daily habits handle the micro level, but you also need a weekly habit for the macro level, a time to zoom out, review your progress, and adjust your systems. Sunday evening or Monday morning works for most people. 1 hour to review your habits, celebrate wins, troubleshoot failures, and set intentions for the week ahead. Now here's where most people go wrong with habits. They try to change too much at once. Research from Stanford shows that willpower is limited and habits compete for mental resources during their formation phase. Try to build 5 new habits simultaneously, and you'll likely fail at all 5. The successful approach is sequential, not simultaneous. Start with one habit, the smallest viable version of that habit. Make it so easy you can't say no. BJ Fogg calls this tiny habits, behaviors that take less than 2 minutes. Want to start meditating? Don't commit to 30 minutes. Commit to 1 minute. Want to start exercising? Don't commit to an hour at the gym. Commit to putting on your workout clothes. The goal at the beginning isn't transformation. The goal is installation. You're installing the habit into your routine design. Once it's installed, once it's automatic, then you can expand it. Jordan didn't start with a 30-minute morning routine. He started with 1 sentence written after pouring coffee. That was the seed. Over 3 months, it grew into a complete morning practice. But it started tiny. This is the paradox of habits. The smaller you start, the bigger you can eventually go. Because small starts actually get completed. And completion builds identity. Let me share one more concept before we close this chapter: the habit scorecard. This is a simple tool that creates massive awareness. Here's how it works. For one day, write down every single thing you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you fall asleep. Not in categories, actual specific behaviors. Picked up phone. Checked Instagram. Went to bathroom. Looked at phone again. Made coffee. Checked email. Everything. At the end of the day, go through your list and mark each behavior with a plus, minus, or equal sign. Plus symbol means this habit moves you toward your desired identity. Minus means this habit moves you away from your desired identity. Equals, equal sign, means this habit is neutral. Most people are shocked by what they find. Behaviors they never consciously noticed are suddenly visible. Patterns emerge. The architecture of their day, accidental, unconscious, often self-sabotaging, is revealed. This awareness is the prerequisite for intentional design. You cannot change what you cannot see. Here's your micro challenge for this chapter. Create a basic habit stack using this formula. After I, current habit, I will new habit for 2 minutes or less. Choose a current habit that's already automatic, something you do every single day without thinking. Then attach one tiny habit that aligns with the identity you're building. Don't try to be impressive. Try to be consistent. The goal is installation, not transformation. Transformation comes later. Write it down. Post it somewhere you'll see it. And tomorrow morning, begin. In Chapter 4, we're going to tackle the force that makes or breaks every habit system: discipline. But here's what you're going to discover. Discipline isn't what you think it is. The most disciplined people in the world don't rely on willpower. They've engineered discipline out of the equation entirely. You'll learn the discipline engine that elite performers use to execute consistently even when motivation is nowhere to be found. And you'll watch Jordan face his biggest test yet, a moment where everything he's built will either hold or collapse. The architecture is taking shape. Now it's time to power it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 4. The Discipline Engine. The most disciplined people in the world don't use discipline. Read that again, because it sounds like a contradiction, but it's the most important insight you'll ever learn about self-discipline. When researchers at Florida State University studied elite performers across dozens of fields, Olympic athletes, concert pianists, chess grandmasters, successful entrepreneurs, they expected to find extraordinary willpower. Instead, they found something that shocked them. Top performers reported fewer instances of having to resist temptation than average performers. Not more. Fewer. How is that possible? Because they'd engineered their lives so that discipline was rarely required. They'd built systems, environments, and routines that made the right choice the automatic choice. While everyone else was exhausting themselves fighting temptation every hour, elite performers had removed the need to fight at all. This is the secret of the discipline engine. Real self-discipline isn't about being stronger. It's about being smarter. Jordan was about to learn this lesson the hard way. 3 months into his personality upgrade journey, Jordan had made real progress. His habit stacks were working. He was speaking up more at work. His confidence was growing. People were starting to notice. Then his company announced layoffs. Suddenly, Jordan's carefully constructed routines didn't seem to matter. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't focus. The anxiety that had always lurked beneath the surface came roaring back. And one morning, Jordan woke up and didn't do any of his habits. No intention setting. No visualization. No morning routine at all. He just grabbed his phone, scrolled through news about the layoffs, and went to work in a fog of dread. That one morning became 2, then a week, then 2 weeks. By the end of the month, Jordan felt like he was back at square one. All that progress, gone. The old identity had rushed back in to fill the vacuum. "What's wrong with me?" Jordan asked when he finally called Dr. Navarro. "I thought I was different now, but the first real crisis, and I completely collapsed. I have no discipline." Dr. Navarro's response surprised him. "You're asking the wrong question, Jordan. The question isn't why you lack discipline. The question is why you were depending on discipline in the first place." Here's what most people don't understand about self-discipline. It's a depletable resource. Psychologist Roy Baumeister's landmark research on ego depletion demonstrated that willpower functions like a muscle. Use it, and it gets tired. Every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every impulse you control draws from the same limited tank. This is why you make worse decisions at night. This is why diets fail after stressful days. This is why the person who resisted the office donuts in the morning raids the refrigerator at midnight. Your discipline tank was empty. But here's the breakthrough. If discipline is a limited resource, the goal isn't to have more of it. The goal is to need less of it. The average person tries to build bigger willpower muscles so they can fight harder against temptation. The elite performer removes the temptation entirely, so there's nothing to fight. Average: I'll resist checking social media through sheer willpower. Elite: I deleted social media from my phone. Average: I'll force myself to go to the gym even when I don't feel like it. Elite: I laid out my gym clothes last night, and my gym is on my commute. Average: I'll use discipline to eat healthy despite the junk food in my kitchen. Elite: I don't keep junk food in my kitchen. Do you see the difference? One approach is a constant battle. The other approach eliminates the battle entirely. Dr. Navarro calls this environmental architecture, and it's the first component of the discipline engine. Your environment is silently shaping your behavior every second of every day. Dr. Navarro explained to Jordan: the location of your phone, the layout of your kitchen, the people you surround yourself with. These aren't neutral factors, they're behavioral triggers. Research from the University of Southern California found that 45% of our daily behaviors occur in the same location every day. Environment doesn't just influence habits, it often determines them. Here's a practical example. Brian Wansink at Cornell University conducted studies on eating behavior. In one experiment, he gave people soup bowls that secretly refilled from the bottom. People with the refilling bowls ate 73% more soup than people with normal bowls and didn't feel any more satisfied. They weren't weak. They weren't undisciplined. They were simply responding to environmental cues. This is why the first rule of the discipline engine is design your environment before you need discipline. Jordan realized his crisis wasn't a discipline failure. It was an architecture failure. When stress hit, his environment was full of friction for good behaviors and zero friction for bad behaviors. His phone was on his nightstand, first thing he saw every morning. His journal was in a drawer, requiring effort to retrieve. His workout clothes were in the closet, out of sight, out of mind. The moment things got hard, the path of least resistance led straight to his old patterns. Jordan rebuilt his environment systematically. Phone charging station moved to the kitchen, not the bedroom. Journal placed on his pillow, impossible to miss. Workout clothes laid out the night before, reducing morning friction to near zero. A sticky note on his bathroom mirror with his identity statement: I am someone who shows up, especially when it's hard. These changes seem trivial, but they transformed his behavior. Before, I had to use discipline every morning to do the right thing, Jordan told Dr. Navarro a month later. Now, the right thing is the easy thing. The environment does the work. This is the essence of environmental architecture. You're not relying on being a disciplined person. You're creating a disciplined environment. But environment is only the first component. The second component of the discipline engine is even more powerful: decision elimination. Every decision you make costs mental energy. And most people are drowning in decisions they don't need to make. What should I wear today? What should I eat for breakfast? What should I work on first? Should I check email now or later? Should I respond to this message immediately? Each of these micro decisions seems insignificant, but they accumulate. By the time you face a real decision, one that requires genuine thought and willpower, you've already depleted your tank on trivia. This is why Barack Obama wore only gray or blue suits during his presidency. Why Steve Jobs wore the same black turtleneck every day. Why Mark Zuckerberg wears the same gray t-shirt. They weren't making fashion statements. They were practicing decision elimination, removing trivial choices to preserve mental energy for what matters. Dr. Navarro recommends identifying your recurring decisions, choices you make over and over, day after day, and systematically eliminating them. Decide what you'll wear on Sunday for the entire week. Meal prep so you never have to decide what to eat. Create a morning routine so specific that it runs on autopilot. Establish office hours for communication so you're not constantly deciding when to respond to messages. Every decision you eliminate is discipline you don't need to spend. Riley's transformation illustrates the third component of the discipline engine: commitment devices. A commitment device is a choice you make in the present that locks in behavior in the future. You're essentially using your current discipline to remove the need for future discipline. Odysseus used the original commitment device when he had his sailors tie him to the mast before sailing past the sirens. He knew his future self would lack the discipline to resist, so his present self made the decision binding. For Riley, the commitment device was radical. She gave her executive assistant control of her email after 7 p.m. The first week was agony, Riley admitted. I kept reaching for my phone, knowing I couldn't check work email even if I wanted to. But that was exactly the point. I didn't have to use discipline to not check. The option simply didn't exist. Within a month, something shifted. The compulsion weakened. Riley started to experience something she hadn't felt in years: genuine rest. Not the exhausted collapse at the end of a 14-hour day, but actual, restorative, guilt-free rest. I used to think self-discipline meant forcing myself to do hard things, Riley reflected. Now I realize the highest form of self-discipline is designing your life so the right things are easy and the wrong things are hard or impossible. Let me give you the complete framework for the discipline engine. This is the system that elite performers use to execute consistently without burning out. Component 1: environmental architecture. Design your physical space to make good behaviors obvious and easy, while making bad behaviors invisible and hard. Questions to ask: what behaviors do I want to increase? How can I reduce friction for those? What behaviors do I want to decrease? How can I add friction to those? What cues in my environment are triggering unwanted behaviors? What's the first thing I see when I wake up? The last thing before bed? Component 2: decision elimination. Identify recurring decisions and systematically remove them through rules, routines, and pre-commitments. Questions to ask: what decisions am I making repeatedly that drain mental energy? Which of these can I make once and never make again? What rules can I create that eliminate the need to decide? How can I automate the trivial so I can focus on the significant? Component 3: commitment devices. Make binding choices that lock in future behavior, removing the option to fail. Questions to ask: where am I most likely to break my commitments? How can I make those commitments binding? Who can I involve as an accountability partner? What can I remove access to entirely? Component 4: energy management. Recognize that discipline capacity fluctuates based on sleep, stress, nutrition, and recovery. Schedule high-discipline activities for high-energy times. Questions to ask: when is my discipline tank fullest? Usually morning. When is it emptiest? Usually evening. Am I scheduling my hardest challenges at my weakest times? How can I protect my high-energy windows? There's one more element to the discipline engine that most people overlook: self-compassion. This might seem counterintuitive. Isn't self-compassion the opposite of self-discipline? Isn't it just letting yourself off the hook? The research says otherwise. Studies by Dr. Kristen Neff at the University of Texas found that self-compassion actually increases self-discipline. People who treat themselves with kindness after failures are more likely to try again than people who beat themselves up. Why? Because shame is paralyzing. When you fail and respond with harsh self-criticism, your brain associates the behavior with pain. You start avoiding the behavior entirely, not because you don't want to succeed, but because you don't want to feel that shame again. Self-compassion breaks this cycle. It allows you to acknowledge failure without being destroyed by it. It creates psychological safety to try again. Jordan discovered this after his layoff-induced collapse. His old pattern was to spiral. I can't believe I gave up. I'm so weak. I'll never change. That spiral would last for days, sometimes weeks. His new pattern, learned through Dr. Navarro's coaching: I had a setback. That's normal. The crisis was real, and my system wasn't ready for that level of stress. What can I learn? What can I adjust? How do I begin again tomorrow? Same failure, completely different response. And that different response made all the difference. The disciplined person doesn't avoid failure. They've simply learned to fail forward. Here's your micro challenge for this chapter. Conduct an environmental audit. Walk through your physical space, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, workspace, and identify 3 friction points. What's one thing making a good behavior harder than it needs to be? What's one thing making a bad behavior easier than it should be? What's one decision you're making repeatedly that could be eliminated? Then make one change. Just one. Move your phone. Relocate your journal. Throw out the junk food. Set up your clothes for tomorrow. Don't try to revolutionize your entire environment in a day. Remember, small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. In Chapter 5, we're going deeper into the mental architecture that underlies everything we've discussed. Because habits and environments and commitment devices all depend on one thing: mindset. You'll discover the critical difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and why this single distinction predicts success better than IQ, talent, or resources. You'll learn why some people see obstacles as stop signs while others see them as stepping stones. And you'll watch Jordan face the layoff decision and make a choice that his old identity never could have imagined. The discipline engine is built. Now it's time to upgrade the mind that runs it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 5. The Mindset Upgrade. In 1998, a psychologist named Carol Dweck conducted an experiment that would reshape our understanding of human potential. She gave 400 fifth graders a simple puzzle test. After they finished, she told half of them, "You must be smart at this." She told the other half, "You must have worked really hard." One sentence, 10 words. What happened next changed everything. When offered a choice between an easy test and a harder one, 67% of the kids praised for being smart chose the easy test. They didn't want to risk their smart label. But 92% of the kids praised for effort chose the harder test. They saw challenge as opportunity. Then Dweck gave all the children a test designed to be impossibly difficult. Everyone failed, but how they responded to failure was radically different. The smart kids assumed failure meant they weren't actually smart. Many gave up quickly. Some even lied about their scores afterward. The effort kids assumed failure meant they needed to try harder. They persisted longer. Many said the hard test was their favorite part of the experiment. Finally, Dweck gave everyone a test equal in difficulty to the first one. The effort kids improved their scores by 30%. The smart kids, the ones told they were naturally talented, scored 20% worse than they had originally. Same kids, same tests, different mindset, completely different outcomes. This is the power of mindset. And if you don't understand it, nothing else in this book will work. Let me be direct with you. Your mindset is either accelerating your transformation or sabotaging it. There is no neutral. Every time you face a challenge, your mindset interprets it. Every time you fail, your mindset assigns meaning. Every time you see someone else succeed, your mindset tells you a story about what that means for you. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are running a mindset that was installed in childhood, never examined, and actively working against their goals. Dr. Navarro puts it bluntly. You can have the perfect habits, the ideal environment, and bulletproof discipline systems. But if your mindset is corrupted, you'll find a way to fail. The mind always wins. This chapter is about upgrading the mind that runs everything else. Dweck's research identified 2 fundamental mindsets: fixed and growth. A fixed mindset believes that abilities are static. Intelligence, talent, personality, these are cards you're dealt at birth. You either have it or you don't. Success proves you have it. Failure proves you don't. A growth mindset believes that abilities are developable. Intelligence can increase. Talent can be cultivated. Personality can evolve. Success means you're on the right track. Failure means you're learning. These mindsets aren't just abstract philosophies. They create measurably different behaviors and outcomes. People with a fixed mindset avoid challenges because challenges might expose their limitations. They give up easily when obstacles appear because struggle means they lack natural ability. They ignore useful feedback because criticism feels like an attack on their identity. They feel threatened by others' success because someone else winning means they're losing. People with a growth mindset embrace challenges because challenges are how you grow. They persist through obstacles because struggle is evidence of learning. They learn from criticism because feedback is data for improvement. They find inspiration in others' success because it shows what's possible. Same world, same circumstances, radically different experience. Jordan had always operated from a fixed mindset without knowing it. When he struggled to speak up in meetings, his internal narrative was, "I'm just not a confident person. Some people are born assertive. I wasn't." When he saw colleagues get promoted, his internal narrative was, "They're naturals. I could never do what they do." When he failed at something, anything, his internal narrative was, "This proves what I already knew. I'm not good enough." This fixed mindset had been running silently in the background for 33 years, and it had shaped everything: which opportunities he pursued, which risks he took, which version of himself he allowed to exist. But now, facing the layoffs, Jordan had a choice. The company was offering voluntary separation packages. Take the money and leave, or stay and fight for one of the remaining positions. The staying required something Jordan had never done: advocate for himself. Loudly, confidently, repeatedly. Old Jordan, fixed mindset Jordan, would have taken the package. "I'm not the kind of person who fights for things. I'm not good at self-promotion. Better to leave quietly than embarrass myself." But something had shifted. The identity work, the habit architecture, the discipline systems. They'd cracked open a new possibility. A small voice, getting stronger. What if I could learn to do this? What if confidence isn't something you have, but something you build? That small voice was the growth mindset, finally breaking through. Let me show you how mindset operates in real time, because understanding the mechanics gives you power to change them. When you encounter any challenge, your brain immediately runs an interpretation. This happens in milliseconds, below conscious awareness. The interpretation determines your emotional response, which determines your behavioral response. Fixed mindset interpretation. This is hard. Hard means I might fail. Failure would prove I'm not capable. I should avoid this to protect my self-image. Growth mindset interpretation. This is hard. Hard means I'm being stretched. Stretching is how growth happens. I should engage with this to develop my capabilities. Same event, different interpretation. Completely different life trajectory. The good news: interpretations can be changed. Mindset can be upgraded, but it requires deliberate practice. You have to catch the fixed mindset in action and consciously choose a different interpretation. Dr. Navarro teaches a technique called mindset interception. The moment you notice a fixed mindset thought, you pause, name it, and reframe it. Fixed thought: I'm terrible at public speaking. Interception: that's a fixed mindset thought. Reframe: I haven't developed my public speaking skills yet. Fixed thought: she's so naturally talented. I could never compete. Interception: that's a fixed mindset thought. Reframe: her success shows what's possible with dedicated practice. Fixed thought: I failed. I'm not cut out for this. Interception: that's a fixed mindset thought. Reframe: I failed. Now I have data about what doesn't work. The word "yet" is particularly powerful. I can't do this becomes I can't do this yet. 3 letters that transform limitation into possibility. Riley's mindset challenge was different from Jordan's, but equally destructive. Riley didn't have a fixed mindset about ability. She absolutely believed she could achieve anything through effort. That was the problem. Riley's mindset said, I must achieve to be worthy. Success equals value. Rest equals laziness. If I'm not growing, I'm dying. This is what Dr. Navarro calls a toxic success mindset, a growth mindset corrupted by conditional self-worth. The belief in development is there, but it's fused with the belief that you're only valuable when you're developing. Rest becomes impossible. Satisfaction becomes impossible. Enough becomes impossible. A healthy success mindset is different. It says, I am inherently worthy. Growth is a choice, not an obligation. I pursue excellence because it fulfills me, not because it justifies my existence. Riley had to learn that growth mindset and self-compassion aren't opposites. They're partners. You can believe absolutely in your ability to improve while also accepting yourself exactly as you are right now. This is the mindset upgrade Riley needed. From, I must constantly prove my worth through achievement, to, I am worthy and I choose to grow. Let me give you the complete framework for the mindset upgrade. This isn't about positive thinking or empty affirmations. It's about systematically rewiring how you interpret reality. Layer 1, awareness. You cannot change what you cannot see. The first step is simply noticing your mindset patterns. For 1 week, keep a mindset journal. Whenever you face a challenge, record your automatic thought. Don't judge it, just capture it. You'll start seeing patterns. Certain situations trigger fixed mindset thoughts. Certain types of challenges make you want to retreat. Certain people's success makes you feel threatened. Awareness alone begins the transformation. Layer 2, interception. Once you see the patterns, you can interrupt them. The moment a fixed mindset thought appears, name it. That's a fixed mindset interpretation. This creates psychological distance. The thought is no longer you. It's a thought you're having. And thoughts can be questioned. Layer 3, reframe. After interception, consciously choose a growth mindset interpretation. Not fake positivity. Not pretending the challenge isn't real. Just a different and more accurate way of understanding what the challenge means. This is hard becomes this is growth. I failed becomes I learned. I can't becomes I can't yet. Layer 4, evidence collection. Mindset changes when beliefs change. Beliefs change when evidence accumulates. Start collecting evidence for your growth mindset. Every time you improve at something through effort, note it. Every time you persist through difficulty and come out stronger, record it. Every time you learn from failure, acknowledge it. Over time, this evidence builds a new belief. I am someone who grows through challenge. Layer 5, identity integration. The final step is integrating the growth mindset into your identity blueprint. Not just, I try to have a growth mindset, but I am a growth-oriented person. Not just, I'm working on believing in development, but development is who I am. When the mindset becomes identity, it stops requiring effort. It becomes your default interpretation of reality. Here's something most people don't realize. Mindset isn't just about how you see yourself. It's about how you see everything. People with a fixed mindset see the world as a hierarchy of talent. Winners and losers. Haves and have-nots. Every situation is a test of where you rank. People with a growth mindset see the world as a laboratory of learning. Every situation is an experiment. Every person is a teacher. Every failure is data. This difference in worldview affects everything. How you approach relationships. How you respond to feedback. How you handle competition. How you interpret other people's success and failure. When you upgrade your mindset, you're not just becoming more confident or more resilient. You're literally changing how reality appears to you. Jordan made his decision. He told his manager he wanted to stay. He wanted to compete for one of the remaining positions. I know this isn't like me, Jordan said, his heart pounding but his voice steady. I know I've never been the one to advocate for myself, but I've been working on that. And I believe I can contribute more to this company than my current role has allowed. It wasn't a perfect speech. His voice wavered slightly. His hands were sweating. But he did it. His manager looked surprised, genuinely surprised. Jordan, I've been hoping you'd say something like this for 2 years. I've seen your potential. I just didn't know if you saw it. 2 weeks later, Jordan got the position. Not because he was the most qualified candidate, though he was highly qualified, but because he was the only candidate who showed he wanted to grow into the role. The growth mindset didn't just change how Jordan felt. It changed what Jordan did. And what he did changed his entire trajectory. Here's your micro challenge for this chapter. Identify your 3 most common fixed mindset triggers. These are the situations where you most often think, I can't, I'm not good at this, or this proves I'm not enough. Write them down. Then write a growth mindset reframe for each. Trigger, fixed thought, growth reframe. Keep this list visible. The next time a trigger appears, you'll be ready to intercept and reframe. In Chapter 6, We're going to build on this foundation with something that changes everything: confidence. But here's what you're going to discover. Confidence isn't a feeling you wait for. It's a result you create. You'll learn the confidence code that high performers use to feel certain even when they're uncertain. You'll understand why most confidence advice is backwards. And you'll watch Riley face her biggest fear, being seen as less than perfect, and discover that vulnerability is the ultimate power move. The mindset is upgrading. Now it's time to build the confidence to use it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 6. The Confidence Code. Confidence is a lie. At least, the way most people think about it. Here's what you've been told. Confident people feel confident, and that feeling allows them to take bold action. So if you want to be confident, you need to somehow generate that feeling first. Visualize success. Repeat affirmations. Pump yourself up until you feel ready. This is completely backwards. And it's why most people never develop real confidence. Here's what the research actually shows. Action creates confidence, not the other way around. The most confident people in the world didn't wait until they felt confident to act. They acted despite feeling terrified, and confidence emerged as a result. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology tracked participants through challenging tasks over 6 months. The finding was clear. People who took action before feeling ready developed 47% more confidence than those who waited until they felt prepared. Confidence isn't the prerequisite for bold action. It's the consequence. And once you understand this, everything changes. Riley had spent her entire life projecting confidence. The power suits, the authoritative voice, the unshakable composure in high-stakes meetings. From the outside, Riley looked like the most confident person in any room. But inside, she was terrified. Constantly. Terrified of being exposed as a fraud. Terrified of making a mistake that would shatter her reputation. Terrified that if people saw the real Riley, the anxious, uncertain, imperfect Riley, they would lose all respect for her. So she performed confidence instead of having it. And the performance was exhausting. This is what psychologists call impression management confidence, the appearance of certainty maintained through constant vigilance and energy. It looks like confidence from the outside, but it's actually fear wearing a mask. True confidence is different. It's not the absence of fear. It's a relationship with fear that allows you to function despite it. Riley didn't know the difference yet, but she was about to learn. The breakdown happened in a board meeting. Riley was presenting quarterly results, something she'd done dozens of times. But this quarter, the numbers weren't good. Market conditions had shifted. Her team had underperformed. And for the first time in her career, Riley had to stand in front of executives and say, "We missed our targets." Halfway through her presentation, something cracked. Her voice started shaking. Her hands trembled visibly. The mask she'd worn for 15 years suddenly felt like it was suffocating her. And before she could stop it, tears began forming in her eyes. Riley excused herself and walked out of the room. She sat in a bathroom stall for 20 minutes, convinced her career was over. The perfect image she'd spent years constructing had just shattered in front of the people whose opinions mattered most. But here's what actually happened in that boardroom after Riley left. The CEO turned to the room and said, "That's the first time I've seen Riley be human. I think I trust her more now than I did an hour ago." This is the paradox of confidence that most people never discover. Vulnerability creates connection, and connection creates trust, and trust creates influence. The leaders we admire most aren't the ones who never show weakness. They're the ones who are honest about their struggles while remaining committed to growth. Research from the University of Houston by Dr. Breen Brown, who has spent 2 decades studying vulnerability, found that vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. Leaders who demonstrate appropriate vulnerability are rated as more trustworthy, more likable, and more effective than those who project invulnerability. Riley had spent her whole life believing the opposite. She thought confidence meant never showing cracks. She thought leadership meant having all the answers. She thought respect required perfection. She was wrong about all of it. Let me give you the framework for building real confidence, the kind that doesn't require a mask. Dr. Navarro calls it the confidence code, and it's built on 5 principles. Principle 1, action before feeling. Confidence follows action. It doesn't precede it. If you wait until you feel confident to speak up, you'll never speak up. If you wait until you feel confident to apply for the job, you'll never apply. If you wait until you feel confident to start the business, launch the project, have the conversation, you'll wait forever. The code is simple. Feel the fear. Take the action anyway. Let confidence emerge from experience. Every confident person you admire was once terrified doing the thing they now do easily. The only difference between them and you is that they did it scared until they could do it calm. Principle 2, evidence over affirmation. Affirmations don't build lasting confidence. Evidence does. Telling yourself, "I am confident," when you have no evidence of confidence creates cognitive dissonance. Your brain knows you're lying, and the gap between what you're saying and what you believe actually decreases confidence. Instead, collect evidence. Every time you take a confident action, no matter how small, record it. Every time you do something despite fear, note it. Every time you receive positive feedback, save it. Over time, this evidence accumulates into genuine belief. You're not trying to convince yourself you're confident. You're proving it through documented experience. Principle 3, competence creates confidence. The most reliable path to confidence in any domain is simple. Get better at the thing. Confidence without competence is delusion. But competence automatically generates confidence. The surgeon who has performed 1,000 operations feels confident about the 1,001st. The speaker who has given hundreds of presentations feels confident walking on stage. If you want more confidence in a specific area, invest in developing competence in that area. Take classes. Get coaching. Practice deliberately. The confidence will follow the capability. Principle 4, reframe the fear. Fear and excitement produce nearly identical physiological responses: increased heart rate, shallow breathing, heightened alertness. The only difference is how your brain labels the sensation. Research from Harvard Business School found that people who reframed anxiety as excitement performed significantly better on challenging tasks than those who tried to calm down. Same physiological state, different interpretation, different outcome. When you feel fear before a big moment, don't try to eliminate it. Reframe it. I'm not nervous. I'm excited. My body is preparing me to perform. This isn't denial. It's interpretation. And interpretation shapes experience. Principle 5, confidence is contextual. Nobody is confident about everything. The CEO who commands a boardroom might be terrified at a dance class. The world-class athlete might freeze during public speaking. Confidence is domain-specific. And that's actually liberating, because it means you don't need to become a universally confident person. You just need to build confidence in the specific areas that matter for your goals. Identify the contexts where you most need confidence. Focus your evidence collection and competence building there. Let confidence expand outward naturally. Here's what happened to Riley after the boardroom incident. She expected to be fired, or at least demoted. Instead, she received something unexpected: authentic connection. The CEO reached out personally, not to reprimand her, to thank her. "You showed us you're human," he said. "That makes you more valuable, not less." Colleagues who had always kept their distance began opening up to her. It turned out many of them had been fighting similar battles beneath their own masks. Riley's moment of vulnerability gave them permission to be human too. And something shifted inside Riley. For the first time in 15 years, she didn't feel like she had to perform confidence. She could just be. "I spent my whole career believing confidence meant being invulnerable," Riley told Dr. Navarro afterward. But real confidence is being vulnerable and surviving. It's knowing that I can fall apart and put myself back together. That's something no one can take from me. This is the deepest level of the confidence code. Confidence not in your perfection, but in your resilience. Let me share a technique that accelerates confidence building: the confidence ladder. Most people try to build confidence through massive leaps. They go from terrified of public speaking to signing up for a keynote address. They go from social anxiety to forcing themselves into huge networking events. This rarely works. The gap is too large. The failure too likely. And failure at that scale often reinforces the lack of confidence rather than building it. The confidence ladder works differently. You identify the thing you want confidence in, then break it into the smallest possible steps. Jordan used this for speaking up. Rung 1. Correct a coffee order. Done. Rung 2. Disagree with a friend about a restaurant choice. Done. Rung 3. Ask a clarifying question in a meeting. Done. Rung 4. Share an opinion in a small group setting. Done. Rung 5. Disagree respectfully with a colleague in a meeting. Rung 6. Present an idea to his team. Rung 7. Advocate for himself to management. Done. Rung 8. Lead a project meeting. Rung 9. Present to senior leadership. Rung 10. Speak at a company all-hands meeting. Each rung is a small step from the previous one. Each success builds evidence. Each evidence builds belief. The ladder creates a systematic pathway from terrified to confident. The key is patience. You're not trying to reach the top rung in a week. You're building sustainable confidence through progressive behavior change, one rung at a time. There's one more element to the confidence code that most people miss: body-mind feedback. Your posture, breathing, and physical presence don't just reflect your internal state, they shape it. Research by Amy Cuddy at Harvard Business School found that holding power poses, expansive, open postures, for just 2 minutes increased testosterone, associated with confidence, by 20% and decreased cortisol, associated with stress, by 25%. Your body is constantly sending signals to your brain about how you should feel. Slouched posture, shallow breathing, and contracted muscles signal threat. The brain responds with anxiety. Upright posture, deep breathing, and open body language signal safety. The brain responds with confidence. This means you can hack your confidence state through physical change. Before a challenging situation, take 2 minutes to stand in an expansive posture. Shoulders back, chest open, feet wide. Breathe deeply. During the situation, maintain confident body language even if you don't feel confident. Stand tall. Make eye contact. Speak at a measured pace. Gesture openly. The body leads, the mind follows. This isn't fake confidence. It's using the body-mind connection to access confidence that's available but blocked by physical tension. Here's your micro-challenge for this chapter. Build the first 3 rungs of your confidence ladder. Identify one area where you want more confidence. Then break it into the smallest possible steps. What's the tiniest action you could take tomorrow that would be a small stretch? That's rung 1. Then identify rungs 2 and 3, each slightly more challenging than the previous. Don't worry about the whole ladder yet. Don't worry about the top. Just identify 3 steps you could take in the next 2 weeks to begin building evidence. Write them down. Commit to the first rung within 48 hours. Confidence isn't something you find. It's something you build, one small action at a time. In Chapter 7, we're going to address the foundation that underlies everything: emotional mastery. Because here's the truth: you can have all the confidence techniques in the world, but if you can't regulate your emotions, they'll hijack you at the worst possible moments. You'll know what to do and still not do it. You'll have the skills and still sabotage yourself. You'll learn the emotional intelligence framework that allows high performers to stay calm under pressure, respond rather than react, and maintain clarity when everyone else is falling apart. And you'll discover that emotions aren't obstacles to success. They're data. Master the data, master your life. The confidence code is activated. Now it's time to build the emotional resilience to sustain it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 7. The Emotional Mastery. 90% of top performers share one trait. It's not intelligence. It's not talent. It's not even discipline. It's emotional intelligence. When TalentSmart tested more than 1 million people across industries, they found that emotional intelligence was the strongest predictor of performance. More than IQ, more than technical skills, more than experience. Among top performers specifically, 90% scored high in emotional intelligence. But here's what makes this finding so powerful. Unlike IQ, which is largely fixed, emotional intelligence can be developed at any age. Your brain's emotional circuitry remains plastic throughout your entire life. This means the single most important predictor of success is also the most trainable. And yet, most people never train it. They leave their emotional responses to chance, reacting to life instead of responding to it. They let a bad mood derail a good day. They let a triggering comment destroy a relationship. They let anxiety hijack their performance at the moments that matter most. This chapter is about ending that. Because emotional mastery isn't optional for the personality upgrade. It's foundational. Let me tell you about the moment Jordan almost lost everything he'd built. It was 3 weeks after he'd secured his new position. Jordan was finally feeling like the upgraded version of himself was real, not just an act, but an actual identity shift. His confidence was growing. His habits were solid. His mindset was stronger than ever. Then his manager called him into a meeting and delivered unexpected news. Jordan would be co-leading his first major project with Marcus. Marcus, the same colleague who had given that half-correct answer in the meeting months ago. The same person who seemed to get credit for everything while doing half the work. The same person who triggered every insecurity Jordan had. Jordan felt the anger rise instantly. His jaw tightened. His hands clenched. A cascade of thoughts flooded his mind. This is unfair. Marcus doesn't deserve this. I've worked so hard, and now I have to share credit with him. Old Jordan would have done one of two things: swallowed the anger, said nothing, and let resentment poison the project, or exploded inappropriately, damaging his reputation and the new identity he'd built. But Jordan had been working on something new, something that gave him a third option. He took a breath. He noticed the anger without being consumed by it. And he said, "I appreciate the opportunity. Can I take a day to think about how to make this partnership as effective as possible?" That pause, that moment of emotional regulation, changed everything. This is what emotional intelligence looks like in practice. Not suppressing emotions, not pretending they don't exist, but creating space between stimulus and response so you can choose your reaction instead of being hijacked by it. Dr. Navarro describes emotional intelligence as having 4 components. Self-awareness, the ability to recognize your own emotions as they occur. Self-regulation, the ability to manage your emotional responses appropriately. Social awareness, the ability to read others' emotions accurately. Relationship management, the ability to use emotional information to navigate interactions effectively. Most people are weak in all 4. They don't recognize their emotions until they've already acted on them. They can't manage their responses because they're not aware there's anything to manage. They misread others constantly, and their relationships suffer as a result. But here's the good news. Each component is trainable. Emotional intelligence isn't a gift, it's a skill set. And like any skill set, it develops through deliberate practice. Let's start with self-awareness, because everything else depends on it. The average person experiences an emotion and immediately becomes that emotion. Anger arises, and they are angry. Fear arises, and they are afraid. There's no separation between the feeling and the self. People with high emotional intelligence experience something different. Anger arises, and they notice. Anger is present. Fear arises, and they observe. Fear is happening. There's a subtle but crucial distinction. They're aware of the emotion without being fused with it. This is called metacognition, thinking about thinking, or in this case, feeling about feeling. It creates a gap, and in that gap lies all your power. Research from UCLA found that simply labeling an emotion reduces its intensity. When participants named their feelings, "I'm feeling anxious," rather than just experiencing anxiety, activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm center, decreased significantly. The act of naming creates distance. Distance creates choice. This is why the first practice of emotional mastery is emotional labeling. Throughout your day, practice naming what you feel, not judging it, not trying to change it, just naming it. I notice I'm feeling frustrated. There's some anxiety present right now. I'm experiencing disappointment. This simple practice, done consistently, dramatically increases self-awareness. And self-awareness is the foundation of everything else. Riley's emotional intelligence journey required a different starting point. Riley was actually quite good at self-awareness. She always knew what she was feeling. Her problem was self-regulation, or more specifically, Her strategy for self-regulation was suppression. Whenever a difficult emotion arose, Riley would shove it down. Fear before a presentation? Suppress it. Anger at an unfair decision? Push it away. Sadness about missing her sister's birthday for work? Bury it deep. This strategy had worked for years. At least, it seemed to work. Riley performed well. She hit her targets. She appeared calm and composed. But suppression has a cost. Research from Stanford psychologist James Gross shows that emotional suppression increases physiological stress, impairs memory, and damages relationships. The emotions don't disappear, they go underground, where they accumulate pressure until they explode. Riley's boardroom breakdown wasn't a random malfunction. It was years of suppressed emotion finally breaking through. Dr. Navarro taught Riley a different approach: emotional processing. Emotions aren't problems to be solved, he explained. They're messages to be heard. When you suppress an emotion, you're ignoring a message. Eventually, the message gets louder and louder until you can't ignore it anymore. The alternative is to receive the message. Feel the feeling fully. Ask what it's trying to communicate, and then choose your response consciously. This doesn't mean acting on every emotion. It means acknowledging every emotion. There's a massive difference. Let me give you the framework for emotional resilience that high performers use to stay regulated under pressure. It's called the RAIN technique, developed by meditation teacher Tara Brach and used by everyone from Navy SEALs to Fortune 500 executives. R. Recognize. Notice what's happening. Name the emotion. This is anger. This is fear. Simple recognition without judgment. A. Allow. Let the emotion be present without trying to fix it, fight it, or flee from it. This is the opposite of suppression. You're creating space for the feeling to exist. I. Investigate. Get curious about the emotion. Where do you feel it in your body? What thoughts are connected to it? What triggered it? What is it trying to protect or communicate? N. Non-identification. Remember that you are not the emotion. You're the awareness that notices the emotion. The feeling is passing through you. It's not you. This four-step process typically takes less than 2 minutes, but it transforms your relationship with difficult emotions. Jordan used RAIN in that moment with his manager. He recognized the anger. He allowed it to be present instead of suppressing it or acting on it. He investigated, realizing the anger was really about old wounds of not being seen. And he remembered that he wasn't the anger. He was someone experiencing anger who could choose how to respond. 2 minutes of internal processing, a completely different external outcome. Now let's talk about the social components of emotional intelligence, because emotions don't exist in a vacuum. They happen in relationship. Social awareness is the ability to read the emotional landscape around you. What is this person feeling right now? What's the mood of this room? What's not being said? People with high social awareness pick up on subtle cues, micro-expressions that flash across a face. Shifts in body language, changes in tone, the energy beneath the words. People with low social awareness miss these signals entirely. They say the wrong thing at the wrong time because they haven't read the room. They damage relationships without understanding why. The good news is that social awareness can be trained through deliberate attention. Dr. Navarro recommends a practice called emotional observation. In any social situation, spend a few moments simply observing others before engaging. What do their faces suggest? Their posture? Their energy? In meetings, Jordan started practicing this. Before speaking, he'd scan the room. Who looked engaged? Who looked distracted? Who seemed stressed? This information changed how he communicated. He learned to address the emotional reality, not just the logical agenda. Over time, this practice becomes automatic. You develop an intuitive sense for emotional undercurrents that most people completely miss. The highest level of emotional intelligence is relationship management, the ability to use emotional awareness to navigate interactions skillfully. This includes skills like knowing when to push and when to back off, delivering difficult feedback in ways that can be received, de-escalating conflict before it becomes destructive, inspiring others through emotional connection, not just logical argument, building trust through emotional attunement. Research from the Center for Creative Leadership found that the primary cause of executive failure isn't lack of technical skill or business acumen. It's poor interpersonal relationships, specifically difficulty handling conflict, inability to build a team, and failure to develop positive relationships with colleagues. In other words, emotional intelligence failures sink careers more often than competence failures. The executives who rise highest aren't necessarily the smartest or the most experienced. They're the ones who can navigate the emotional complexity of organizational life. They read people accurately. They manage their own reactions skillfully. They build trust and connection systematically. This is why the personality upgrade includes emotional mastery as a core pillar. You can have all the confidence and discipline in the world, but if you can't manage the emotional landscape, your own and others, you'll hit a ceiling. Let me share a concept that transformed Riley's approach to emotions: emotional granularity. Most people have a limited emotional vocabulary. They feel bad or good, stressed or fine. But research by Lisa Feldman Barrett at Northeastern University shows that people who can distinguish between finely nuanced emotional states, who know the difference between disappointed and discouraged, between anxious and apprehensive, between irritated and resentful, have significantly better emotional regulation. Why? Because precision enables precision. If you only know you feel bad, your response options are limited. But if you recognize that you specifically feel undervalued, you can address the actual need. Riley started expanding her emotional vocabulary. Instead of stressed, she'd identify, I feel overwhelmed because I have too many competing priorities, and I feel guilty because I know I'm neglecting some of them. That precision changed everything. Now she knew what to actually do: prioritize and let go of the guilt. The vague stress became a solvable problem. Your micro-challenge for this chapter includes building this vocabulary. One more principle before we close. Emotional resilience isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about recovering quickly. Research on resilience consistently shows that resilient people don't experience fewer negative emotions than others. They experience the full range of human feeling, including pain, grief, anger, and fear. The difference is recovery time. Non-resilient people get stuck in negative emotional states. A setback triggers anxiety, and the anxiety lingers for days. An argument creates anger, and the anger poisons the entire week. Resilient people feel the same initial hit, but they process and release. The anxiety comes, they work with it, and it passes. The anger arises, they address it, and it clears. This is trainable. Every time you practice rain, you're training faster recovery. Every time you name an emotion and let it move through you, you're building the neural pathways for resilience. Jordan noticed this shift after about 2 months of practice. Bad news still triggered him, but where he used to ruminate for days, now he processed in hours, sometimes minutes. The emotions still came, but they no longer stayed. This is the essence of emotional resilience. Not immunity to difficulty, but the ability to metabolize it efficiently. Here's your micro-challenge for this chapter. Part 1. Build your emotional vocabulary. Write down 10 negative emotions that are more specific than bad or stressed. Words like disappointed, overwhelmed, undervalued, anxious, frustrated, discouraged, resentful, lonely, embarrassed, or inadequate. Part 2. For the next week, when you notice a difficult emotion, use the RAIN technique. Recognize it with a specific label from your vocabulary. Allow it without suppressing. Investigate what it's telling you. Remember, you're not the emotion. Track your recovery time. Notice if you're processing faster by the end of the week. Emotional mastery isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Small daily upgrades in emotional intelligence compound into massive transformation in how you experience life. In Chapter 8, we're going to leverage your growing emotional intelligence for something powerful: social upgrade. Because here's the truth: success doesn't happen in isolation. The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. You'll learn the communication mastery techniques that build trust, influence, and presence. You'll discover why charisma isn't a gift, but a learnable skill. And you'll watch Jordan and Riley navigate their most challenging social situations yet and come out transformed. The emotional foundation is set. Now it's time to build connections on top of it. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 8. The social upgrade. The most successful person in almost any room is rarely the smartest. They're the most socially skilled. This is an opinion. It's data. When researchers at Carnegie Mellon analyzed what determines career success, they found that 85% of financial success comes from skills in human engineering, the ability to communicate, negotiate, and lead. Only 15% comes from technical knowledge. 85%. That means your social skills are nearly 6 times more important than everything you learned in school. And yet, how much time have you spent deliberately developing those skills? How many hours have you invested in communication mastery, in learning the science of charisma, in systematically upgrading how you connect with others? For most people, the answer is close to zero. They assume social skills are innate. You either have them or you don't. They believe charisma is a gift, something you're born with or without. They're wrong. And that misunderstanding is costing them everything. Jordan used to believe he was just not good with people. He could have a conversation, sure. He wasn't antisocial. But there was always an invisible barrier between him and genuine connection. Conversations felt transactional. Networking events felt exhausting. And the people who seemed to effortlessly command rooms? Jordan assumed they were a different species. Then Dr. Navarro said something that shattered Jordan's assumptions. Social skills are exactly that, skills. Would you say you're just not good at piano if you'd never taken a lesson? Would you claim you're not a math person if you'd never studied? Social skills are learnable. Every charismatic person you admire developed that charisma through practice, whether they realize it or not. This reframe changed everything for Jordan. He wasn't socially defective. He was socially untrained. And training was something he could do. Let's start with the foundation of all social skills, listening. Most people think they're good listeners. They're not. Research from Wright State University found that the average person listens with only 25% efficiency. That means 75% of what's being said goes completely unregistered. We're too busy thinking about what we'll say next, too distracted by our own internal monologue, too focused on ourselves to actually hear others. But here's what that research also revealed. People can sense when they're not being heard. At a subconscious level, they register that you're not fully present. And that lack of presence destroys trust, connection, and influence. The best communicators in the world aren't the best speakers. They're the best listeners. They make others feel heard in a way that's rare and powerful. Dr. Navarro calls this deep listening, and it involves 3 levels. Level 1, content listening. You hear the words being said. This is where most people stop. Level 2, emotional listening. You hear the feelings beneath the words. You register not just what someone is saying, but how they feel about what they're saying. Level 3, identity listening. You hear what this conversation reveals about who the person is, their values, their fears, their aspirations. You listen for what matters most to them. When you listen at level 3, something magical happens. People feel understood at a depth they rarely experience. They trust you more. They open up more. They remember you as someone extraordinary, even if you said very little. Jordan started practicing this immediately. In conversations, instead of preparing his response, he focused entirely on the other person. What were they really saying? What emotions were present? What did this reveal about who they were? The results shocked him. Colleagues who had always kept their distance began seeking him out. His manager commented that Jordan seemed more present lately. A client said Jordan was the first person who really listened in years. Same Jordan, different skill, completely different social experience. Riley's social challenge was the opposite of Jordan's. Riley didn't struggle to command a room. She struggled to connect in one. Her communication style was efficient, authoritative, direct, perfect for delivering presentations, terrible for building relationships. People respected Riley. They didn't particularly like her. And in the long run, likability matters more than most high achievers want to admit. Research from the Harvard Business Review found that people would rather work with a likable person who's moderately competent than a highly competent person who's difficult to work with. Likability is a form of competence, a crucial one that Riley had neglected. Dr. Navarro introduced Riley to a concept that transformed her approach: warmth before competence. Studies by social psychologist Amy Cuddy reveal that when we meet someone new, we immediately make two assessments. Can I trust this person? Warmth. And can this person deliver? Competence. The order matters. If someone comes across as competent before warm, we view them with suspicion. We wonder what they want from us. We keep our guard up. But if someone comes across as warm before competent, we're drawn to them. We want to help them. We give them the benefit of the doubt. Riley had always led with competence. Every conversation was an implicit demonstration of how smart, capable, and accomplished she was. And it was pushing people away. Her upgrade was simple but profound: lead with warmth. Show genuine interest in others before showcasing her own abilities. Ask questions before making statements. Connect before impressing. The shift felt unnatural at first, but within weeks, Riley noticed a change. People smiled more when she entered rooms. Conversations went longer. Her team started coming to her with problems instead of hiding them. She was becoming someone people wanted to work with, not just someone who got results. Let me give you the framework for communication mastery that underpins all successful social interaction. It's built on 4 pillars. Pillar 1. Presence. You cannot connect with others if you're not actually there. Presence means bringing your full attention to the interaction, not splitting it between the conversation and your phone, your thoughts, your agenda. Research from the University of Essex found that simply having a phone visible during a conversation, even if it's not being used, reduces the quality of connection between people. The mere presence of the device signals divided attention. Presence is rare, and because it's rare, it's powerful. When you give someone your complete attention, you're giving them something most people never receive. Practice. In your next conversation, put your phone away. Make eye contact. Let go of your mental to-do list. Be here, fully, with this person. Pillar 2. Curiosity. The most charismatic people are genuinely curious about others. They ask questions not to fill silence, but to understand. They find something interesting in everyone. This isn't a technique, it's a mindset. When you approach others with genuine curiosity, they sense it, and they respond by opening up in ways they normally wouldn't. Practice. Before your next social interaction, set an intention. I'm going to discover something interesting about this person. Then ask questions until you do. Pillar 3. Validation. People are starving for validation. They want to feel that their experiences, opinions, and feelings are legitimate. When you provide that validation, you create instant connection. Validation doesn't mean agreeing with everything someone says. It means acknowledging their perspective as understandable. That makes sense. I can see why you'd feel that way. That sounds really difficult. Practice. In your next conversation, find at least one opportunity to validate the other person's experience. Notice how it changes the dynamic. Pillar 4. Authenticity. People can sense inauthenticity from a mile away. When you're performing instead of being, when you're trying to impress instead of connect, others register it, even if they can't articulate why. Authenticity means being honest about who you are. It means sharing your actual thoughts and feelings, not the ones you think others want to hear. It means being willing to be imperfect. Practice. In your next conversation, share something real, a genuine opinion, an actual struggle, an authentic reaction. Notice how vulnerability invites vulnerability. Now let's talk about charisma, because charisma isn't magic. It's a specific set of behaviors that can be learned. Researcher Olivia Fox-Caban spent years studying charismatic people across fields. She found that charisma boils down to 3 elements: presence, power, and warmth. Presence we've already covered. It's the foundation. Power is the perception that you can affect the world around you. It's communicated through body language, taking up space, moving with purpose, through voice, speaking with certainty, using pauses effectively, and through status signals, how others respond to you. Warmth is the perception that you care about others. It's communicated through genuine interest, through validation, through small acts of kindness and attention. The most charismatic people embody all 3 simultaneously. They're fully present. They project power without arrogance, and they radiate warmth without weakness. Here's the breakthrough. You can consciously adjust these elements. Feeling like you lack presence? Put away distractions and focus your attention completely. Feeling like you lack power? Stand taller, speak slower, take up more space. Feeling like you lack warmth? Smile genuinely. Ask curious questions. Find something to appreciate about the person. Charisma isn't a fixed trait. It's a dynamic combination of behaviors that you can dial up or down depending on the situation. Let me share a social skill that transforms professional relationships: strategic vulnerability. We discussed vulnerability in the confidence chapter. Now let's look at how to use it socially. Research shows that sharing appropriate vulnerability accelerates trust dramatically. When you reveal something imperfect about yourself, a struggle, a mistake, a fear, others feel permission to do the same. Walls come down. Connection deepens. The key word is appropriate. Vulnerability should match the relationship stage and context. Sharing deep trauma with a new acquaintance isn't vulnerable, it's overwhelming. But sharing a relevant struggle in a professional context? That's strategic vulnerability. Jordan used this with Marcus, his new co-lead on the project. Instead of competing or posturing, Jordan started the partnership by saying, "I'll be honest, I used to really struggle with speaking up and advocating for myself. I've been working on it, but there might be times when you need to pull my perspective out of me. I wanted you to know that up front." Marcus's response surprised Jordan. "Man, I appreciate you saying that. Honestly, I sometimes overshadow people without meaning to. Maybe you can tell me when I'm doing that." One moment of vulnerability, one honest admission, and suddenly they weren't competitors, they were collaborators. There's one more element of social skills that separates the good from the exceptional: reading the room. High-level social intelligence includes the ability to sense group dynamics: who has power, what tensions exist, what's not being said. This awareness allows you to navigate complex social situations with grace. Some of this builds on the emotional intelligence from the previous chapter. But reading rooms goes further. It includes understanding status dynamics. Who does the group defer to? Who holds informal power? Alliances and tensions. Who is aligned with whom? Where are the friction points? Unspoken rules. What topics are off limits? What behaviors are expected? Energy levels. Is the room engaged or checked out? Relaxed or tense? Dr. Navarro teaches a practice called social mapping. When you enter any group situation, spend the first few minutes observing before engaging. Map the dynamics. Identify the key players. Notice the undercurrents. This intelligence shapes how you engage. Maybe you need to acknowledge the informal leader before proposing an idea. Maybe you need to avoid a sensitive topic. Maybe you need to raise the energy or calm the tension. Average people walk into rooms and hope for the best. Socially intelligent people walk into rooms having already assessed the landscape. Here's your micro challenge for this chapter. In your next 3 conversations, practice the 4 pillars of communication mastery. Conversation 1. Focus entirely on presence. Put away all distractions. Maintain eye contact. Be completely there. Conversation 2. Focus on curiosity. Ask questions with genuine interest until you discover something fascinating about the other person. Conversation 3. Focus on validation. Find at least 2 opportunities to acknowledge the other person's perspective or experience. Notice what changes. Notice how people respond differently when you communicate with intention. Social skills compound like any other skill. Small daily upgrades in how you connect lead to massive transformation in the quality of your relationships, and therefore, the quality of your life. In Chapter 9, we're going to integrate everything you've learned into the neuroscience that makes it all possible. Because here's what's actually happening as you read this book. Your brain is physically rewiring itself. Every new insight creates new neural connections. Every practice strengthens new pathways. You're not just learning, you're restructuring the organ that controls everything. You'll discover the science of neuroplasticity and why it means you can change at any age. You'll learn the specific conditions that accelerate brain rewiring. And you'll understand how to achieve peak performance by aligning your biology with your ambitions. The social upgrade is complete. Now it's time to understand the brain that's driving it all. Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. Let's continue. Chapter 9. The Brain Rewire. Your brain holds nearly 86 billion neurons, each capable of forming thousands of connections, more pathways than stars in the Milky Way. And the most important discovery in modern neuroscience is this: those pathways are not fixed. They strengthen, fade, and reorganize throughout your entire life. Every new skill you practice, every habit you repeat, every emotional pattern you interrupt literally reshapes the brain. This lifelong flexibility is called neuroplasticity, and it is the scientific engine behind every transformation in this book. For centuries, experts believed the brain became rigid after childhood. But studies, like Eleanor Maguire's work with London taxi drivers, revealed the opposite. Their hippocampus physically expanded as they memorized thousands of streets. Experience changed structure, and that discovery shattered the myth of a fixed identity. The question is no longer can you change. You can. The real question is whether you'll shape your wiring intentionally or let old patterns run the show. Your brain follows the principle. Neurons that fire together wire together. Repeat a behavior, emotion, or thought, and the pathway strengthens. Ignore it, and the pathway fades. This is how habits form and how old patterns die. You're not fighting your brain. You're collaborating with its architecture. Jordan saw this firsthand. For years, he froze in meetings, stuck in a loop of anxiety and avoidance. But after months of practicing speaking up, something shifted. "It's like my brain finally got the memo," he told Dr. Navarro. The old silence pathway weakened. The new confidence pathway became the default. Riley experienced the opposite side of neuroplasticity. Burned out, she took a month off and resisted every impulse to perform. At first, it felt unbearable. Her identity had been built on output. But as she practiced rest, a calmer wiring took shape. By week 3, her nervous system settled. She wasn't pretending to be calm. Her brain had learned it. Neuroplasticity accelerates in 5 conditions: focused attention, novelty, emotional engagement, sleep, and physical exercise. Deliberate practice, varied experiences, emotionally meaningful repetition, deep rest, and movement all increase your brain's ability to change. And peak performance, including flow states, emerges from this same architecture. When challenge meets skill and focus deepens, the prefrontal cortex quiets, and the brain floods with powerful neurochemicals. Stress itself becomes fuel when interpreted as a challenge rather than a threat. As Dr. Navarro told Jordan and Riley, "You haven't just changed behaviors. You've changed your brains. The person you are now is built on upgraded neural hardware. Your micro-challenge: choose one pathway to strengthen and one to weaken. Practice the new one with presence and emotion. Starve the old one through inaction. Every repetition engraves the identity you want to live." Small daily upgrades. Massive neurological change. Chapter 10. The Daily Protocol. 1 year ago, Jordan couldn't correct a coffee order without spiraling into self-doubt. Riley couldn't rest for 10 minutes without feeling like she was wasting her life. Today, both of them operate from a fundamentally upgraded identity. Their transformation wasn't sudden, dramatic, or mystical. It was structured. It was earned through repetition. It was built through one system, the daily protocol. Transformation is not an event. It is a rhythm. Confidence grows from accumulated small acts of courage. Discipline emerges from consistent systems. And emotional mastery forms through deliberate responses repeated over time. Successful people don't wait for motivation. They create predictable conditions that make growth automatic. The daily protocol unifies everything you've learned into a single, sustainable practice. It has 4 parts: the morning ignition, the work anchors, the evening download, and the weekly reset. Each part reinforces identity, behavior, and mindset in a continuous loop. Morning ignition, 15 to 20 minutes, starts the moment you wake up. Identity statement: declare who you are becoming before the world tells you who to be. Mindset calibration: reframe challenges as training grounds. Intention setting: choose 3 high-impact actions aligned with your upgraded self. Visualization: mentally rehearse the version of you who executes with calm confidence. These minutes set your brain's filter for the entire day. Work anchors, done in brief moments throughout the day, keep your identity online. A 1-minute transition ritual prevents autopilot reactions. A midday reset recalibrates your emotional state. And the rain response interrupts old wiring during stressful moments, allowing conscious choice instead of reflexive behavior. Evening download, 10 to 15 minutes, converts the day's experiences into identity-building evidence. You record one moment the old you wouldn't have handled the same way. Then you extract the lessons the day offered and prepare your environment for tomorrow. This keeps momentum alive and prevents drift. Weekly reset, 60 minutes, zooms out. You review patterns, recalibrate your systems, and recommit to the protocol. It transforms the week from something that happened to you into something you intentionally shaped. Jordan applies the protocol with precision. His morning identity statement, "I speak my truth with calm confidence," anchors him instantly. He rehearses key moments, anticipates challenges, and enters the day already neurologically primed. When stress spikes, he slows down, breathes, checks his identity, and chooses the upgraded response. Each evening, he records proof. Today I challenged the VP respectfully. Day by day, these small votes accumulate into unshakable belief. Riley's protocol focuses on boundaries and worthiness. She begins screen-free, reminds herself that rest is strength, and sets intentions for what she will protect, not just what she will produce. She schedules breaks, honors her limits, and uses the midday reset to ensure her pace is sustainable. At night, she celebrates moments where she chose balance over burnout. Her new identity grows through repetition, not pressure. Many people hear the word protocol and imagine complexity, but the total investment is roughly 45 minutes per day and 1 hour per week. Less than 4% of your waking life. Yet the compound effect is enormous. Jordan's confidence redesign led to promotions and deeper relationships. Riley's rewired sense of worth prevented a collapse that would have derailed her career and health. The math of transformation is simple: small daily upgrades, massive long-term change. There will be days you slip, days when the old identity resurfaces. This is not failure, it is biology. Habits weaken when starved, but never vanish instantly. The rule is simple: don't miss twice. One off day changes nothing. 2 off days form momentum in the wrong direction. Treat setbacks with compassion. Extract the lesson. Return to the protocol. Your personality is not a prison, it is a pattern, and patterns can be rewritten. What feels permanent is usually just something you've repeated for years until it started to feel like just who I am. Now you hold the tools to reshape that pattern with intention. Identity formation to redefine who you believe you are. Habit architecture to automate aligned behaviors. Discipline systems to keep you steady when motivation fades. Emotional regulation to respond instead of react. Confidence building to act in the presence of fear. Mindset reframing to turn obstacles into training. Social intelligence to navigate people with clarity, and the neuroscience that explains why all of this works. But tools only matter when they're used. Transformation begins the moment you choose to act. Today, not one day. Remember, even the smallest intentional action can ignite a wave of momentum, shifting your direction, your mindset, and eventually your entire identity faster than you ever believed possible. The tiniest step, the one that feels almost too small to matter, is often the doorway to an entirely different life. Jordan's journey began with something as ordinary as correcting a coffee order. Riley's began with honoring one simple boundary. From the outside, those moments looked insignificant. On the inside, they were seismic. Each one sent a clear signal to the brain: we are no longer running the old program. So ask yourself now, what is your smallest possible step? Not the perfect plan, not the ideal timing. Just the next action you can take today that casts a vote for the person you intend to become. A boundary you hold. A decision you stop postponing. Every transformation starts this way. One moment of intention, repeated until it hardens into identity. 1 year from now, you will arrive somewhere. That part is non-negotiable. Time will move either way. The real question is, who will you be when you get there? Will you arrive as the same person, running the same patterns, telling the same stories about why you can't change? Or will you arrive as the upgraded version of yourself, the one who finally stepped off autopilot and began living on purpose with awareness, discipline, and courage? Small daily upgrades. Massive transformation. This is the personality upgrade, and it begins now.